Hello and welcome to whatever this is. Back when I was in middle school, I was on Instagram probably, or like an Instagram Tumblr combo, and I saw the last clip of SKAM season 1, the very, very last clip, where Ava and Nora are looking at Isaac's phone and discovering some things about him. And I was like, oh my god, what is that? Who are these people? I need to know immediately. So I tracked it down. I watched the entire first season, and I have been absolutely hooked ever since. If you don't know what SKAM is, it is a Norwegian teen drama that aired from 2015 to 2017 about a group of high schoolers and their lives and their struggles and, you know, just everything, all the good stuff. It aired for 4 seasons, and it had this really unique format called like a real-time airing format. So basically, instead of getting one episode all at once, you would get a clip every single day that would like compile into an episode at the end of the week, and the clip would drop at the time the clip was happening. So like if the characters were eating lunch, the clip would drop at lunch. And then they also had social media accounts that would like post posts that related to the characters and the events of the show as they were happening. So like if the characters went to a party, they'd post like a selfie of them at the party on Friday night and all of that good stuff. To be honest, those two factors, the real-time factor and the social media factor, are not going to be super relevant to this video because you can watch the show without them. Like, you can totally watch and understand the show without, like, understanding or needing those two aspects. So there is that, but also, like, that's just a whole separate thing. To go into their social media and all of the differences between their social medias, oh my god, that could be, like, a thesis. So I'm not gonna get into that quite yet. What I'm instead going to get into is all of the plot differences between SKAM, the Norwegian original show, and all of its remakes. Yes, remakes. I am just going to pull this like entire thing out of my memory as a SKAM fan, but the way I remember it is that Julie, the creator of the show, had always planned to step away from it after like 3 or so seasons and like just like have the show going with someone else, because she was like director, writer, producer. She was doing a lot. It was her baby, her project. So she was like gonna step away, and then she got too attached, so she couldn't. So she was like, I'm just gonna give it my proper ending. And then on top of that, and the reason as established like officially, like by Wikipedia, officially by Wikipedia, is that the show just kind of got like too big for the production. The fandom, they just like could not handle what was happening. SKAM was never supposed to be as popular as it got, and that really caused a lot of stress on the production that they weren't able to keep up with. So the original show ended up ending after 4 seasons, despite reaching like super massive mega success. But in order to kind of capitalize off that success and keep the show going, even though the original ended kind of in its prime, the original creator and production company, channel, whatever, decided to sell the rights to the show to a bunch of countries. I think originally it was 8, but now it is absolutely more, so that these countries and select channels, usually ones that are like publicly funded, could remake SKAM in their own language and use the not only the format of the show, the real-time format and the social media, but also like the characters themselves and the plot lines. Just literally remaking the show verbatim in their own language, something that is actually very common within the industry, of course, but it is very rare to see a show do it like this many times and in this way, and I am just fascinated. Because, like, I remember when we found out SKAM was ending, I was devastated. And then they're like, we're going to keep it going, but it's in this really new and innovative way. And it was very exciting because ultimately SKAM was going to have to be a shorter show. I think maybe they could have gotten like 1 or 2 more seasons out of it, but ultimately the characters were going to graduate. They were going to move on. The show had to end eventually. And I think it was good that it ended at such a strong moment in time, in their history, in their stories, and this is a really great way to keep it going, and I have seen every single one. Every single remake of SKAM that's ever come out. So yeah, that's where we are today. Why have I done this to myself? I don't know. This has been years of my life. Literally, again, started watching the show in middle school, Watched all through high school, watched all through college. I am now post-college. I just graduated, only a few weeks ago, but I just graduated. I'm an adult with an adult job, and I'm still watching this goddamn show about a group of high schoolers. So I'm going to put this knowledge to use, and I'm going to compare and contrast every single season of the show ever made. Today, we are going to start with, of course, season 1, Ava's season, where it all began. Oh god. I think I'll start off with a brief summary of the original season, just establishing the main points, the main characters, and then we'll just dive right in to every single remake, what it changed, what's good about it, what's bad about it, what I like about it, what I dislike about it, more importantly. Quickly, I just have a few disclaimers. Number one, I'm not going to be calling out like every single change of every single remake. That would take me 5 ever. We would be here for hours and hours and hours. I just kind of pointed out the ones that I thought were important, relevant, or I just like liked or disliked for some reason, just to keep things moving, just to kind of get the like main gist of what's different about the shows from the original or from each other. I also just want to recognize that a lot of these changes were made for like cultural purposes so that the show would be more relevant to the community it was being released into. So in that case, I only really relate to one of the remakes, SKAM Austin. I'm from America, born and raised here. It's the only country I've ever lived. So I will totally admit first and foremost that like I'm not an expert. This is all opinion. I understand that a lot of these things have like political or cultural reasonings behind them, a lot of which like I will hopefully get to go into and get to discuss, because that's one thing I think is so fascinating about the show, is how these cultural changes are like presented and made. But yeah, I just want to acknowledge that like I may not understand them, and I never want to try to like step on anyone's toes and like try to be the American inserting her like end-all be-all opinion on different cultural takes on things. That's not what I'm trying to do. Now that we got those two things out of the way, let's get into a brief recap of season 1 of SKAM, Ava's season. So season 1 follows the story of 16-year-old Ava as she attempts to find herself and some new friends after a massive falling out between her former best friends, Sarah and Ingrid, and her. Luckily, she has a boyfriend named Jonas, and she's close with his best friend named Isaac, but the two encourage her to find her own friends who relate to her and her hobbies a bit more. So she stumbles upon Nora, Vilde, Chris, and eventually Sana, and together the 5 of them form a Russ group. According to Wikipedia, Russ is a traditional celebration for Norwegian high school students in their final spring semester. Some purchase large buses to drive to events and to party, while others may buy a van or car. Not all Russes have buses at all. Participants wear colored overalls, usually red, blue, green, white, or black. Some form groups that name a bus, car, or van, often making a name or logo, as our group of girls has now done. As Ava attempts to gain more independence and put herself out there more, she also begins to worry that Jonas is cheating on her with Ingrid, but fear not, he's just buying drugs from her brother, of course. But unfortunately, Ava has already now cheated on Jonas with penetrator Chris, a secret she attempts to hide to everyone except for Isaac, who she confides in. Eventually, his girlfriend finds out, penetrator Chris's girlfriend that is, and she fights Ava and her friends very publicly and reveals the secret. Iconically so. Jonas and Ava break up while Vilde reveals to the girls that Jonas was actually Ingrid's boyfriend and cheated on her with Ava. Yikes. While attempting to revive all of her relationships, she accepts the lack of trust that led to the failure of each one. This allows her to set things straight with Ingrid, Sarah, her Russ group, and even Jonas, though they ultimately decide to go their separate ways. The only person she can't quite mend things with is Isaac, who was the one that had ultimately revealed her cheating, her dirty little secret, saying it was all because of a dirty little secret of his own, that he has a crush on Ava. But that might actually not quite be the case. Woo! So that is season 1 of SKAM, Ava's season. Overall, it is a really strong season of television. It introduces so many amazing characters in amazing ways. Everyone feels very natural and nuanced in a way that I had really not seen in TV up until that point. It is really, really refreshing even to this day. The season is like a beautiful time capsule of that 2015 to 2017 era. It is so nostalgic. It is so dated, quite frankly, but I love it. I love the way they completely embrace the time period they were in and the place they were in and the trends that were happening at the time and the things teens were saying and feeling and wearing. It's just so perfect. While the show did gain popularity as it went on, specifically with the release of the third season, it honestly did get a lot of praise and acceptance right off the bat. And that is a very, very rough summary of this show. I basically just wanted to summarize like the main beats and character names. I assume you're not going to watch this video if you haven't seen this show, just because with all of its popularity and remakes, I think it still does fill kind of a niche. If you're here and you haven't seen it, hello, welcome. You definitely should see it. But no offense, I'm gonna act under the assumption that you've at least seen the first season of SKAM, that you've at least seen that Norwegian season. So I left a lot out, definitely a lot about the side characters and their lives, but that is Ava, that's her story. And now let's move on to the first ever remake, SKAM France. So SKAM France was the first remake to air. It aired in 2018, so after the original SKAM had already ended. The first 2 seasons of this show are pretty much a shot-for-shot remake. They are very, very similar to the original. They also shot the first 2 seasons back to back, so like they couldn't take the feedback from the first season and apply it immediately to the second season. They had to wait to the third season, if that makes sense. So those first 2, very, very similar to the original. Eventually it ends up branching out a lot, which is lovely. These first 2 seasons still very good, but honestly, there's not too much to say. There's definitely the least amount of differences between this season and the original, which makes sense. It was the first remake ever. I can totally understand kind of like wanting to play it safe. And again, as we will later see, I think they took the feedback really well. They got into themselves, they grew into themselves really well. But this first season, it's just Ava. And it's great because Rust is not something practiced in a lot of, or really any of the other countries that have SKAM remakes. They have to replace it with something else. So in this remake, they replaced it with a party. The girls just like want to throw a party, and that's a big deal because they're pretty young still. So like, is the party gonna be good? They got to get people. Like, it has to be a good party. Like, it's a big deal. It's a party, sure, I guess. Like, it's fine. It's unoffensive, okay. The biggest difference between this season and the original is that it's 9 episodes instead of 11. They just, like, combined a few or, like, moved some clips. Not a very big deal, but that's something they did. The actress, the lovely, lovely actress that plays Emma, also plays her very differently than Lisa played Ava. She's a lot, like, angrier, instead of being, like, sad or really like disoriented. Like, she's just very like angry and mad at her situation and the things that happened, which I feel like was a really, really good way to play the character. And it definitely does kind of set it apart from the original in a way that is very unique, but still very true to the character. So I really, really applaud that change. Manon and Emma, Manon being this remake's Nora, also start their friendship a little bit differently. Emma is just a little more cold to Manon originally. She's definitely just way more focused on restoring her old friendships rather than starting new ones. But that quickly changes for the better. They also don't exchange those like failed messages and pretty much just like start their friendship in class, which is fine. It's great. They also take out the weird like trophy thing. They don't have a trophy. No one gets a trophy or gets like branded for sleeping with William, who in this remake is called, oh God, what? Charles. No one gets anything for that, luckily. In this season, at least. So, thanks. Good God. I hate that plotline. Finally, one of the most tangible differences of the show in the first season is that their Sana, Aman, is not allowed to wear her hijab at school due to restrictive laws in France regarding religious displays in public. Women are not allowed to wear their hijabs in, I believe, public institutions such as schools. So she has to take hers off when she is on campus, which is not something we saw in the original. In the original, Sana was allowed to keep her hijab on at all times. So that is something that is the rest of the show, and we obviously get to see a lot more of once her season rolls around. But that is a very interesting change that comes not necessarily out of like creative choice, but out of cultural restriction, and yet ended up being something that added a really creative element to the show, and opened up a really important conversation. So overall, pros of this show, I would say it transitioned quite well because it was pretty copy paste. I like what they did with it, with making Ava angrier and kind of asserting little quirks about the girls that were different from the original. But overall, it was good because the original was good, and this one was so similar that how could it not also be good? Cons would be that for this season, it just doesn't really add anything new. There's nothing too new or fresh. There's little things about each character, like I said, but overall, it just kind of, it doesn't do anything wrong, but it doesn't add anything new. Again, it's a solid watch because if you love the original, you'll love this one. It's the same show. So that's pretty much it for SKAM France. Now on to our second remake, SKAM Italia, which is another Ava season. Another Ava season as in like these are all Ava seasons, but like she's called Ava. Like we had an Emma, now we're back to an Ava. Like you get it, right? So first of all, the Russ replacement in the show is nothing. They just kind of like take out that concept. They don't have Russ replaced with any concept of like organized hangouts or like some sort of activity they're doing together. That is gone, and I would say this is pretty positive. Instead of like the planning scenes that we would see in the original, we get these kind of like almost vignettes of the girls just like hanging out and talking, which I feel was quite refreshing. It was pretty positive, so I like that change. I feel pretty good about that replacement, and I don't feel like the absence of that like organized activity really affects the show that much, especially since they do eventually introduce one for the later seasons. So one of the first differences I noticed about this show is that Italy's rating system is a lot more lenient than some other countries, and the things you are allowed to show on screen to certain age groups is very different than what I would expect from where I'm from or from some other remakes. It's a little shocking at first, I will be honest, especially considering the characters are all teenagers, but the actors very clearly are not. Take that as you will. It does give Gio and Ava's relationship like a very intimate vibe. Like they very clearly do like each other and are affectionate with each other, which I do like, but it's different. Also, Ava's parents are still together in this remake. They still live together. They're still married. And it just kind of like, it just kind of weakens the relationships with her parents and that plot line. They don't really do much with it. That's one that, again, like that could be more of like a cultural difference. Like, I don't know what divorce rates are like in Italy, but it was a difference that did kind of just like suck a little bit of the soul out of Ava's like home life and the relationships there. Like, it just was very neutral, not as dramatic. That wasn't so much a plotline in this remake as it is in others. Another difference with this remake is that it's able to like set itself up very well for the future because it like knows where the show is going, knows where it's headed because it's a remake. They establish a lot of the side characters, including like the boy squad, some of them like way sooner in the show. This is something a lot of remakes will start doing, but this is one of the first ones where we saw it, of like them using the foresight to specifically add like more to the friend group, more to the boy squad. So, and kind of on that note, they develop Ava and Martino's relationship a lot more. They make his betrayal just like make a lot more sense and feel a lot more impactful, and also just set themselves up to have a really good dynamic in the future, which I really, really liked. Also, the actress playing Eleonora was making choices, character choices, which I loved. She was very much doing her own thing, but still embodying the soul of the character, and I absolutely loved it. You can't help but notice it if you watch a lot of SKAM remakes, just like SKAM remakes. Jesus. I've said it so much, it's like not even a word anymore. But anyways, if you watch a lot of SKAM remakes, you'll get very used to kind of like the Nora stereotype, and you'll very quickly realize sometimes Eleonora just like flies right out of it, which I really like, but still very grounded. She's a lot of fun in this season. The girl group also gets together way quicker, which I like. They cut like straight to the chase, which is very refreshing. The more girl groupage, the better, in my opinion. That is a SKAM staple to me, so I will never complain about more girl groupage. They also replaced that heinous, terrible period blood scene with like graffiti on the wall, which Ava like really desperately tries to wipe off, and it's like really sad actually. Again, love when they replace that scene because what the fuck? What the fuck? So yeah, it's just like graffiti on the wall in this one. Conveyed the point just as well. Thank you very much. The scene where Sylvia, who is this Remakes Vilde, reveals to the group that, or like how Ava and Gio got together is also like devastating. Like it's a really, really sad scene, and Ava just like lays it out. Like it is intense. They also add a scene between Ava and Eduardo, which like creates more tension between her and Sylvia, kind of painting Ava as like the boyfriend stealer, which I thought was kind of an interesting tension. It also sets up a little bit of Eduardo and Eleonora's relationship. Good, kind of random, but good, okay. And these final 3 differences I have are things that, in my opinion, really put a damper on this remake. SKAM Italia, I definitely on Tumblr at least, was very active on SKAM Tumblr, oh my god. But on SKAM Tumblr, SKAM Italia was very, very well received. It was considered to be one of the best remakes, and I always really, really struggled with it, especially in the earlier seasons because of these reasons. So number 1, in the scene where Sana comes to the girls and she's like usually dressed in all white with like a towel and just like burying herself really natural, Sana actually takes her hijab off in that scene, which is really beautiful and in the real world is like totally realistic to what would happen in the moment. It's like it is actually a very beautiful scene. But the reason it is allowed to happen is because the actress playing Sana is not Muslim. She's not Muslim at all. She is not someone that wears a hijab. So she can take her hair out in that scene. So you kind of see like why it's a little weird. Not all of the Sana actresses are Muslim, which is a complicated topic that I myself can only speak on so much as someone that is not myself Muslim. Also, some of them, again, have to be able to take their hijab off because they are in countries where that is like standard or that is something that would be happening, such as with the French and Belgium remakes. So I don't know, it is again a really beautiful and realistic scene, but just considering the context in which it is allowed to be filmed, like that kind of puts a damper on it, if that makes sense. Also, unfortunately, Sylvia is way more racist than Vilde was, just straight up racist. Not ignorant, not making mistake, like racist. It's crazy, and she is not the only one. Multiple characters refer to Sana as Sana bin Laden, which is crazy and terrible and really just fucking cruel. And on that, we're gonna kind of go to the cons of this show first, because that would be my biggest con about SKAM Italia season 1, is there's just like a mean vibe to the show. Obviously there's tension and drama between characters. That happens in every version of this season. That is integral to the plot. But like characters that are supposed to be friends say like extremely fat-phobic things about Fede. They say extremely Islamophobic things about Sana. They say extremely sexist things about Eleonora and Ava and Vilde, and like it is like shocking, and it's kind of jarring. And listen, teens are mean people. Teens can say mean things and they can be wrong about things, but no one in this show at any point ever recognizes that they're wrong in that. Very rarely do characters apologize for those words. In fact, I don't think they ever do in most cases, especially for the Islamophobia and fat phobia. I do not feel like, at least within the first season, Fede and Sana are like apologized to adequately for the treatment they received by not only the men in the show, but some of the other girls. And I know like some people are gonna think I'm being really dramatic about that. And again, it's okay to show characters being ignorant or being mean, but I just do not think this comes around to be shown as a negative in the way it should be. It is oftentimes justified or written off. It just makes the show a little uncomfortable. It does not make you feel as safe with this girl group, dare I say, as I would with some others. I wish maybe that would have been like a plot line, maybe all of them reckoning with their racism a little more. And again, like maybe they will later in the show, once we get to the 4th season, but we shouldn't have to wait like 4 seasons, which for them was like several years, for those characters to like have that growth. I really think they should have never been saying that in the first place. And when they did, it should have been addressed, and it was not, and I noticed. But I will end on some pros. Number one, the show is beautifully shot and composed. It is really well made, as honestly all the remakes are. I would say usually these are very, very high quality productions, but this one in particular just like had an aesthetic, had a mise-en-scène that was really doing it for me. So I will give them props for that. They also really utilize the fact that they know what is coming next really well. Like I said, they do a really good job of planting Easter eggs to certain plot lines and storylines, which I really enjoyed. Again, they're just using that foresight in a way that SKAM France didn't, which I applaud. Overall, this is a pretty strong season of television. It is very well made. I would say that this seems to be a production team that really did care about SKAM. They cared about the future of the story. They were planting Easter eggs. They were preparing for it. They were putting the time and effort to make this show really beautiful. I do just think some of those moments are overtaken by the way they handled specifically the diversity in the show, and it's just disheartening. It is something that a lot of SKAM struggles with. I'm not going to say that SKAM Italia is alone in their depictions. Their struggles to maybe sometimes accurately or authentically depict certain diverse or minority groups, but there is just a mean tone at times in this one that I really did not appreciate. And maybe it's just because I'm an adult now and I can see that. But like, as an adult, don't talk to your friends that way. Do not. Be fucking nice to them. Anyways, another con is that I feel like Ava has really compelling relationships with the male characters, more so than Ava has had in the past with other male characters in other remakes. But this often comes at the expense of the female characters in the show. For example, her relationship with Martino is a lot stronger than Ava's relationship to Isaac was, but that comes at the expense of Ava's relationship with Eleonora. We get less Girl Squad time in favor of more scenes with her and Jonas and her and Martino, and while I think those scenes are really good, really well made, and are very intriguing, it is just kind of like a different vibe than what you would necessarily expect from this show, especially considering the first season is supposed to be about Ava learning to distance herself from the men in her life and their male approval, and learn to be comfortable and confident with her womanhood and the women around her. Again, that's another notice where I'm like, that might be nitpicky, that might be negative. It's just something that it's sad. It's an unfortunate disadvantage to the show and its characters. Like Ava deserved more time with her girls. But yeah. All right, everyone, it is now time for the next remake, SKAM Austin, Megan's season. It's my country, balls in my court. Let's go. Land of the free, home of the brave, world's oldest democracy. American Pope. Let's fucking go. Pope Leo. And no one else of note. No other public figures worth mentioning at the time. So SKAM Austin aired in 2018, and it is the only remake to be written and directed by Julie, the creator of the original SKAM. I think this is really interesting because on one hand, Julie, as I mentioned, maybe wanted to do a lot more with SKAM that she wasn't able to, so she's able to infuse a lot of those ideas, as well as her just like familiarity with the original seasons into this one. It is really just like SKAM at the end of the day because it is so connected to her. But also, I know I and quite a lot of other fans would have maybe preferred someone with more familiarity to like the source and the location and the age range of these characters in this time. I think one of the most interesting things about SKAM is not only the way that it takes the story and puts it into other countries, but also the way it takes the production and puts it to other country and allows so many diverse creatives from all these different places to get to put their own spin on this story. And I'm really sad we didn't get to totally see that here, especially because when we do, it is some of the best moments of the show. So I wouldn't say that having Julie work on this show ruins it. I am saying I would have maybe liked to see what it could have done without her. The rest replacement in this show is a high school dance team, which I quite like. It's very realistic. It also isn't as stereotypical as you would imagine. It's not just like, we're gonna join the cheer team. There is still a lot of commentary on like doing it to be popular or to attract male attention that is obviously like deconstructed throughout the show and with the girls, but it's not like the super cliche like cheerleader football team thing. They definitely, I think, understand the nuances and the differences between, as someone that actually was on a cheer team and interacted with the dance team, I do think it is actually like a quite realistic depiction of like the dance team experience and how that would work. I think this does a good job at like making it specific to American high school and the importance that sports truly do play in our schooling experience without being as stereotypical as just like cheerleading and football. I think like at the end of the day, the characters are in Texas. Like they are going to be engaging with sports at school likely. So I like the way that they were willing to just be like, fuck it, yeah, they are going to be on a dance team, but it isn't as like one note as you would maybe fear from an American remake of a not American show. This remake definitely has the most differences thus far. We're also only 3 remakes in though. So, but still, like I have a pretty good amount of bullet points, so let's go. So the first major difference is that Jonas, who is named Marlon in this remake after the name of the actor that played the original Jonas, how cute. But anyways, he does not give the opening speech. Instead, this random girl gives it that's like a reoccurring character in the show. She's a fucking icon. And she doesn't give like that speech. She instead just like goes on this like tangent about like participating in like sports and activities in school and like getting good grades and how like Megan's kind of like a fuck up and she's not. And it is so funny. I love this change because it is not one any of the other remakes have made, and it is so relatable. It's like a very specific girl you absolutely knew in high school. So I just really appreciate that. We then found out, very excitingly, that Isaac in this remake is now Shay. And I remember when this came out, there was so much debate over whether, like, Tyler was supposed to be the Isaac character or if it was Shay, even though it was clearly Shay. And, like, people were like, well, it has to be Tyler because Tyler's a man and he's gay. And, like, people could just, like, not fathom having 2 gay friends, which, like, unfortunately that might be a rare circumstance for some people, maybe especially in Texas, but it is not the end of the world. I think it is just more realistic to assume that Marlon has like 2 gay friends than somehow Tyler is actually Isaac. But whatever. It's also really interesting because this adds like a more specific level of jealousy between the relationship of Shay and Marlon, and the way that Megan is viewing it. She really does feel like Shay is an actual threat, unlike Isaac. And it ties really well into like the gossiping theme. The gossiping, the jealousy, that's like a big thing in this season in general, but this remake really hones in on it. And I think having Shay be a girl really changes the way that Ava interacted with her, even though Ava was already spilling shit with Isaac. Didn't fucking matter, girl or boy, he was hearing it. But it just adds a really interesting dynamic. Also, Megan's parents are together, but unlike SKAM Italia, where it's just like they're together and that's that, they are like clearly not in a happy marriage. They're constantly fighting, and Megan is like taking note of this and feeling a lot of tension about it. And what I really love about this is it really directly impacts the way that Megan treats Marlon. It adds like a really good plotline into the way that teens pick up the way that their parents treat people and the way their parents love people and how they apply that in their lives. So you will see like Megan's mom will like buy a gift to make things up to her father, and then Megan will be like, oh, I should do that. Or like Megan's mom will get in a fight with her dad, and like Megan will do that with Marlon. And I do think that was a really interesting and a really realistic plotline. And I think it's good to see because in a lot of Ava remakes, Ava's parents are divorced, but it's kind of interesting to see it where it's like it's in the process, or like maybe they should be divorced but they aren't actually, like to see the kind of like Ava storyline just at a different point in time. Also in this remake, Marlon blows Megan off for like the talent night, like the talent show, like last minute. Like instead of like in the original where like Jonas agrees, and then immediately he's like, oh damn, I forgot. Like in this one, it's literally like she's waiting for him outside and he blows her off, which is like a way bigger deal. And then Kelsey's crying outside and Megan approaches her and she's like so nice. And when she goes to find Joe and she finds the wrong Joe, we find out that she actually has hooked up with that Joe before at a Halloween party. Again, that's like a cute little moment where it's like we're seeing Ava at a different time in the story a little bit, where it's like, I think I've seen this film before. They also cut out the cabin storyline, which I do feel is pretty realistic. I cannot speak to all American teens, but in my experience, for example, which for reference, I have lived in 3 states. I've lived in Colorado, New Mexico, and Oregon. So I've never lived in Texas. I don't have the Texas experience. So I've never lived in Texas. I don't have the Texas experience, but I've had a lot of other experiences. And quite frankly, it's just not very common for American high schoolers to be allowed to go on trips with their friends or partners. Even the lie, like I know Ava's line in the original, like the mom doesn't know she's going with Jonas. She thinks she's going with the friends. I think even that lie would not super fly. Again, I'm not saying this is like this never happens or it didn't happen to anyone, but I do think like it makes sense that they cut it for the American remake, especially considering the parental situations that Marlon and Megan are established to have, which is like pretty overprotecting, pretty involved. Also, having Tyler like present throughout the season basically like covers this plot line. It basically like the band and Tyler and Shay and like their friend group and the way that Megan feels kind of like excluded or not welcomed by them, like that's pretty much just covered throughout the season, instead of it just happening in like one weekend, which I works well. They then make like a really big deal later in the season of mentioning that when Marlon and Abby were together, they actually did go on a 3-day trip together with her parents, which is like a big deal. And to me, like that feels realistic. Like the two of them going on a trip with their parents and like the girls being like, oh my god, like that feels very realistic to my high school experience and like the things our friends were allowed to be doing. Again, I think that was a very good stand-in for like the cabin as it was in the original. Zoya's loser speech, Zoya being this remake Sana, where she's like, we are losers, we suck, is also like so brutal, specifically to Grace. She like calls the fuck out of Grace's white feminism, which is so valid and so needed, but damn, girl. Also, the Daniel intro in this one is so cliche, it kills me. They even make a joke of like how cliche it is. Also, when I rewatched the show, and like every time I've rewatched it since, the song Hall of Fame by like Swoop or something is in it, but when it originally dropped on Facebook Watch, it was Donald Glover. Was it Sweatpants? It was like, I think it was Sweatpants. I don't even remember what it was. No, it wasn't. Was it Bonfire? I don't even remember what song it was, but it was Donald Glover. And I've never seen it with that sense. I know originally, once I think I saw it was because of like copyright reasons and like leasing in different countries, which that happens a lot with like things not being available in certain countries. Yeah. So I think that's what happened, but justice for the Donald Glover Daniel intro cracked me the fuck up. Also, the Girl Squad walk is like a Girl Squad drive, which is so accurate and so American because we do not have walkable cities. That is so realistic. It would not have been a Girl Squad walk. It absolutely would have had to been a Girl Squad drive. I love it. I love the way they do that. And you just still get a bit of walkage at the end. Don't worry if you're not. But yeah, that part made me laugh. It was a painful awakening. Also, going back to things that are a way bigger deal in this one than in the original, Ava skips Marlon's gig instead of canceling dinner, which I think feels like a way bigger deal because she didn't do it beforehand. He was literally texting her like, where are you? She's like, at a party. That's fucked. That is kind of fucked. Fuck. And Grace, bless her heart, is way more appropriately concerned about Kelsey losing her virginity to Daniel. She is really scared about that. And thank God, so many remakes, which, I mean, it may be good that they're a little more sex positive than we are, but I don't even think this is sex positive. Like, someone protect this girl, please. Megan also goes on a double date with Joe, and Daniel and Kelsey, which again feels like a way bigger deal. That's like actually sus. And at the start of the date, you have to watch Daniel and Joe like park their lifted truck, which is like really traumatic and uncomfortable and unfortunate. but very American. Thank you. And also at this date, Megan watches Marlon get in a car with Abby, who is the Ingrid stand-in. Like, she does not, like, overhear them on the phone. She literally, like, witnesses it, which, again, way bigger deal. They then have a dance. They go to, like, homecoming, which is a big deal for, like, an episode and not the whole season, which I love. I feel like in so many, like, American shows, like, they'll treat the, like, prom or the dance like this big ass thing, and I feel like this was comfortable. It's like this was exciting for them for, like, an episode. For, like, a week they were excited about homecoming, and then it happened, they moved on, which I feel like is totally appropriate, because, like, they're fun. Yeah, they're exciting, but, like, they're not that big. They treated this with, like, the exact level of respect it deserved. We then find out that Marlon is selling his Adderall to Abby, which, again, say it with me, way bigger deal than the plotline in the original. Way bigger deal. Selling his Adderall. He also says the line, "It hurts that you think I'd cheat on you." How'd this relationship start, babes? Huh. Megan also has a great scene with her mom and, like, why don't you divorce my dad? And, like, the mom discussing, like, why she stays in a relationship that maybe isn't great for her, and it, like, helps Ava come to some conclusions about her own relationship, of course, which I love. I love when remakes add conversations between Ava's parents and her, specifically her mom. I think it always adds a really beautiful insight, and I think this one was done really well. Megan then gets a smoothie dropped on her head instead of a period blood note. Super bummer, but thank fucking God. There's also a smoothie motif throughout this season. Not sure what that's about. They're always talking about getting a damn smoothie. So, okay. The girls coordinate the little, like, party to cheer up Kelsey, like, by themselves. Like, they don't just, like, hijack that other girl's party. They, like, make their own, which is, like, really sweet. Because that seems always sweet regardless of how they get there, but love it. And then Megan and Abby heal up their relationship, like, very realistically. The two of them, quite frankly, kind of just, like, talk it out. They beef it out. They get their shit straight. And then they kind of just, like, go back to being friends, which I think is so realistic. That is so high school. I think in some other remakes, the tension between Ingrid and Ava will continue throughout the seasons. And in this one, like, that just doesn't happen, which I really like. It just, yeah, it was very girlhood of, like, I literally threw a smoothie on you and then we talked it out and now we're fine. Like, we then get what I think is one of the best lines in any SKAM ever. One of the best lines in the whole franchise history, which is, "A bitch is knocked up." Zoya says that, of course, after her other iconic line, which is, "Run up then! Okay, run up then!" Zoya, I love you, and I love this scene. The scene where Kelsey reveals she is pregnant is also has, like, a lot more anxiety in it than some of the other ones do, which is very appropriate. Like, again, like the way that Grace was freaking out about her losing her virginity an appropriate amount, Kelsey is freaking out about potentially being pregnant a very appropriate amount. Like, it is very stressful, which I really liked, and it also really snaps her back into reality. I think in some of the other remakes, they use this scene to show how kind of naive Vilde continues to be, because in some of them it's like, oh, she was taking the wrong test or she was wrong about something and haha, and we all just kind of laugh it off. But I think in this one they do a really good job of, like, showing how this really snaps Kelsey back to reality, and she really realizes the consequences some of her actions could have, as do the girls around her. Like, it's a very heavy scene, and I really like the way that was depicted, especially because I think that is more accurate to the way a plotline or a situation like this would be handled by American teenagers. Zoya is, like, so comforting in the scene. It's so beautiful. I really love the way she was allowed to take charge in this scene. And then Grace, like, very sweetly reveals that it was, in fact, an ovulation test. And I, again, like this because there is no way those girls were going to get feminine healthcare in Texas. I think part of the fear and the panic in that scene is, like, truly, like, they did not know where to go from there. Had they not figured that out themselves, they would have been in probably a really difficult situation, especially considering their time in place. It would not have been realistic for them to all together, like, march to their school nurse or their, like, local women's health center. It is way more realistic that they would have had to handle the situation themselves. So, again, very sad, very rude awakening, but very, very appreciated and very realistic, and also not always the case, but is not something we've seen yet, so I'm glad they showed it. Overall, that breakfast scene is, like, it's beautiful. It's a really, really good scene, as is the ending scene. One of the best ending scenes of the show, and very different from the original, but chef's kiss. So pros, I would say, I've never lived in Texas, like I said, but not home, but I know my way around when it comes to this show. I truly do feel like this show really embraces Texas, really embraces the location it's in. I think specifically setting it in Austin, Texas, as opposed to like Dallas, added an interesting level because of course they are in a liberal city in a conservative state. So that is a, I think, really interesting level. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure they should have set the show in Texas. I much prefer them setting it in Texas as opposed to like a California or New York. But I'm just not quite sure they like totally had it. But at the same time, I think they have it enough that it is like, it's really refreshing. It reminds me a lot of my time living in New Mexico. It reminds me a lot of my time in high school, as I was in high school during the years this particular remake was released. Again, I think it just does a really good job cultivating like the vibe, the location, a vibe very specific to America and to this remake that I really appreciate as someone that actually is familiar with the location. Again, while I am still not totally familiar, I'm not a Texan, and American states are very He's a Texan. Sometimes living in different states can feel as different as living in different countries, especially when it comes down to the cultural experiences of your youth. So I cannot totally speak to how accurate it was, but I personally, relating it to my experiences as an American teenager, I really, really loved it. And I loved the way that Julie was able to use her experience as the original creator to infuse this show with a very, very SKAM vibe. There's so many references to the original in the character names, in the plot. Even when they do make changes, I think they really adhere to the spirit of the show well, and I think that has a lot to do with Julie's presence. But again, I would have loved to see a SKAM that just like didn't have Julie. I think they handled it having Julie really well, but I still would have loved to see it without her, and I would have loved to see a show that maybe wasn't specifically an American SKAM that wasn't so reliant on the original source material, because again, I think the best moments of this season come when they are acting really independently and really creatively. My biggest con would just be that it lacks some depth. I would say they don't really go as far or as hard on any storyline as they should. Every storyline needed like a few more minutes or like a few more lines. Like they just weren't quite getting there, and it definitely was like getting a little frustrating throughout my watch because they would start themselves up on these really, really strong storylines or moments, and then they would just like stop, and it was just such a shame. I would definitely say that is where like a lot of their weakness comes from. It's just not giving the show the time and nuance it deserved in all the moments it deserved. Overall, it hits hard, but it could hit harder. It is still just like so charming though, and just I do love this one. People are way too hard on this show. I think, honestly, this remake, SKAM Austin, is no more flawed than any other remake of the show. I think it holds its weight just as much as the rest. Kill me, sue me. Like, again, I have my qualms with them, like, not going far enough on some storylines, and I do think this was hindered a bit by the fact that they never got to complete the show. They only got to do 2 seasons, but I love it. It had me hooked. Like, in defense of SKAM Austin, it is a very, very high quality show. It is a very diverse, interesting cast. It is really, really beautifully shot. It lacks a bit, I will be honest. But you guys are way too hard on it. You're way, way too hard on SKAM Austin and not hard enough on SKAM Italia. The next remake we have to discuss is DRUCK, the first season of which premiered in 2018 and follows the story of Hannah. This is the first remake to not be a SKAM. Instead, it is DRUCK, which is shame in German, the same way that SKAM is shame in Norwegian. Originally, the US SKAM was going to be called Shame, but they ended up changing that at some point in production, I think to kind of fit with the other remakes that had already established the SKAM blank trend, but this one said fuck no, and I love it. The Rust replacement in this one is Hero Party, which is a party thrown for grade 11s where the younger kids celebrate them like heroes, according to Wikipedia. So the girls are assigned together in a group to work the party. They are in charge of the parking lot, and they're specifically assigned there because the woman in charge of assignments is Leonie, who is the Ingrid replacement. And this establishes that she is a problem not only with Hannah, but actually like all of the girls for one reason or another. So one of the first differences we see is that Hannah meets Amira before she meets any of the other girls. When the theater kids come up to Hannah to invite her to the party, Amira is also sitting there. So they have like a cute little awkward moment together. Amira is then at that party and is more kind of established throughout the season. She definitely inserts herself in more places where the original Sana was kind of left out, which I really like. Hannah and Mia also spend a bit of time together before their relationship officially asserts itself in the classroom. Overall, like the girls just like establish a lot more chemistry before officially becoming kind of a group together, which is really sweet. They also all witness the William walk that happens in episode 1, and he's not William, he's an Alexander. Notice how I remember everyone's names, but not the Williams. We'll get into that when we do the season 2s. Oh my god. Mia is also a lot more confident in her feminism in this one. I would say it's one of the better depictions of a like accurate feminist Nora character. She seems really genuine and she seems really educated. In some of the other remakes, like Nora's kind of lacking feminism is specifically like called out, like in SKAM Austin, like they specifically have a conversation about white feminism, which I think can be really interesting, and I do like when they do that. But I also did really like this one where it was like a very confident and comfortable character, like in her femininity, in her feminism. I really liked the way that it was not like treated as like a joke or something she should have been ashamed of. Hannah also lives alone with her dad in this one, as opposed to living alone with her mom, which I think is really interesting. Their relationship is very similar to the mother-daughter one we see in other remakes, but there's like a gap between them. There's just a separation in their relationship with each other due to their gender. In a lot of the other ones, it is very like clearly shown that like at the end of the day, like Ava and her mother are kind of connected in this like womanhood. They can talk about boys together, they get it, and those are the things that really bind them. But Ava or Hannah doesn't have that here with her dad, which I think is really interesting. It's specifically pointed out, and it causes her a little bit of grief throughout the season that I really appreciated seeing, as sad as it was. They also have very honest and direct conversations about sex. I think this could just be like the nature of how sex is discussed in Germany. I don't know, but I also think this show in general just does a very good job about writing like non-shameful, direct conversations about sex, about the feelings, about the stigmas, about what they want, what they don't want, and I really appreciate that. They also have like fewer graphic scenes. Like they don't have as many actual sex scenes as say like Italia or some of the other shows. A lot of their like romantic or sexual scenes are actually like discussions, which I think is really productive because it's still doing those things without necessarily showing them or putting their actually age-appropriate actors in compromising positions, which is always appreciated in shows like this. Hannah's kiss with Sam, who's the Penetrator Chris stand-in, was also super yes. Damn. And there's like no trophy. There's like no Alex William trophy. They cut that, which again, love. I just like, I always know what they do with that because it's one of the fuck-assiest plot lines of the first season, and it needs to be called out. Mia is also really invested in supporting Kiki throughout the show, which is normal for SKAM. That relationship is always really crucial and important, but like it is very, very highlighted in this one. So when Kiki shows up to the party drunk, Mia actually just takes her home by herself because, you know, she won't get in trouble or anything, and she's willing and able to handle that. And then instead of getting like a vulnerable like sauna reveal, we get a scene where Nora takes off her lipstick, which is very sweet. I love this scene. I think it's really good. I think if you know what you're missing, this scene kind of like isn't as good. Like if you know that this scene originally had like all the girls in it and it had sauna, like I think this scene kind of fails in comparison. But if you only see this scene, like you would love, like it's a great scene. It's a great scene. So I do still love it, but it is just like it's just different. It's different. Meanwhile, while that's happening, Hannah and Jonas are sleeping together. They're having their, you know, their like breakup sex kind of thing. And then they have their talk in the next episode. And while that talk is happening, they're just having this like really beautiful hug, which I really like. I like the way that their like final moment was just really like sweet and soft. But we still got that more intimate moment between them. It was just, I thought that was a nice change. That really wasn't too much different. The show then ends with the girls getting to be heroes. They save the day at the party. The party's a bust. The girls come out to the parking lot to be like, this sucks. And then one thing I really do love about this one, it has like a really positive, like cheesy ending where the girls get to like be the heroes and they save the party after it's a total flop. And Sam brings the music. It's super great. It's super cheesy, but I love it. And I love getting to see the girls like have a win like that. They don't get a lot of big wins in this show, I feel like, so I liked that. So pros, I would say this remake is really good at bringing all of the different friend groups together. They do a really good job at establishing like the girl group and the boy group and other groups that all like come together, and they have this like kind of big friend group, which I think just lends itself really well. It's very realistic, and also kind of makes the transition to the Mateo season after you've been watching like the Girl Squad seasons like a little less jarring, because you do feel more like inserted and more comfortable with the boy squad. All of the characters are also just like super authentic and natural, very well written and very, very well acted. I definitely just feel like very relatable. They all just feel very relatable, authentic, natural, of the time. Love them. This remake also does a better job at like updating some of the archetypes to be a bit more relevant and nuanced. As I mentioned, Mia's feminism is like a lot more like specific and authentic and genuine, and Amira's religion is also included just a lot more naturally and authentically. She has things like prayer alarms. She doesn't just miss parties for like unspecified reasons. Like, she's at them sometimes, or she has specific reasons as to why she's not there. Like, her religion is just a lot more fleshed out. It just feels a lot more authentic. They just definitely they saw something they could improve upon, and they did it, and I really love that, and I really respect that. Cons, I would say that this remake definitely is not as different from the original as I remember. It starts off a little different, so you like, I thought that would keep, and it definitely doesn't. It has a lot in common with the original. It's more of like a SKAM France than a SKAM Austin, if that makes sense. And it's especially shocking because in the next few seasons, there are some like really big differences, and I kind of think this season needed one. There's usually like one key change or like one oomph that the next season's had that this one doesn't and really could have used. I'm not sure what that would have been, but would have liked to see it. Also, Hannah and Mia kiss, which I don't love. Mia does this to try to get Alexander off her back, which I totally appreciate. She also is actually a queer woman. Like, I do think that is explored later in the show, but it's just super, it wasn't great. It wasn't a great way to handle that plot line. Obviously, like, having like a gay girl kiss a straight girl to reject a boy that she's eventually gonna get with. It just was like, it was a little weird. A little not great. But overall, this show's really good. It's a really good remake. It just feels very lived in. It updates itself very nicely. It's so similar to the original. Again, it really can't be bad. If you like the original, you would like this one, but I think you would also appreciate the changes they did make. Also, I am a little biased. I do love this one. This one's one of my favorites, I will admit. And I'm a tall redhead named Hannah. Like, what can I say? Like, that's my girl. That's my girl. The next remake is another one of my favorites, which is SKAM NL, which also aired in 2018. This is an Isa season. And by this point, we had a lot of remakes, Aaron. This was like prime time when this one dropped. Ooh, that was the moment. Good shit. The Rust replacement in this one is the city trip, which is an end of year trip done in groups. The girls form a group together. Easy that. This is a perfect replacement. I think it's very similar to Rust while also being specific to the country, to the students. Perfect. So on to the differences. First, I wrote, finally, some good fucking food, in parentheses, diversity. Yeah, quite frankly, most remakes are not as good at adding in diversity outside of pre-written diversity as this show was, which is crazy because most of these characters could just be like open cast. Like, again, except for those few specific that already have like race or religion plot lines included. Like, you can pretty much cast whoever, and yet most choose to cast a very specific type. And I love the way that this one tried not to do that. Though it still had its flaws, specifically not having a plus-sized Chris. which again is something a lot of remakes struggle with, in the same way that remakes struggle with their Sanas. A lot of times they'll struggle with their Chris's, and adding in a body positivity plotline for her. Again, it sometimes will be insulting, or it'll just be erased, like in this one, which definitely sucks. They do, though, even add a scene into this one that, like, Liv, who is our Nora, is introduced at the party per usual, but she is singing this song that is actually, like, the actress's own original song that's on Spotify. That shit was played on repeat. It's a banger. Isa is, like, transfixed. So are we. And then there's no name mix-up. Ava's just, like, sitting, and she gets hit on by the Chris stand-in, who's, like, I don't know how to pronounce his name, quite frankly. And she just, like, ignores him. She's, like, so focused on Liv that she just, like, blows him off, which is everything. She then meets Engel, who is our Vilde stand-in, at the party, and just, like, correctly brings her Jan, who is our Chris stand-in. These girls are fucking weird, quite frankly, and I love it. They are weird girls, and as a weird girl, I appreciate it. Iman has this iconic intro, Monster Sana. She rolls in. Oh my god. Literally everything. So many good intros in this show. Also, Engel is just kind of, like, more cringe than, like, actually racist. Like, the things she says are not nearly as offensive as some of the things said in SKAM Italia. They're a lot of times, like, she's trying the best, like, she's trying to mean well, and she's just, like, kind of missing the point, which I think was a good way to handle that. And I think the other characters do, like, a really good job of, like, directing her and, like, helping to educate her. Which was just, it was just very sweet, and it makes more sense as to, like, I think some remakes will really, really up the tension between the Vilde and Sana character, which can be really interesting, but in this one, they reduce it a lot, which is also really interesting, and it's just really sweet. There's even, like, a really sweet scene in episode 3 where she asks if it's hot in the summer, like, to wear the hijab, and then she's like, well, at least you look so pretty in it, and she's just, like, staring at Iman with just, like, the sweetest expression, and she's like, well, like, I guess, like, well, like, you look beautiful, so, like, it's just, like, so sweet. And I think it's scenes like that are more just like, oh, you, like, silly little girl, like, asking about, like, is that hot to wear the hijab? Like, scenes like that, instead of, like, more, like, offensive scenes. I love it. There's also this crazy scene where Isa, Jan, and Engel get food poisoning, and they, like, dramatically throw up in the sink, which is just this, like, great bonding moment for them. And then Iman and Liv, who are laughing at them on the couch. It's a crazy addition that didn't need to be there, really. But I love that it was. And then they cuddle on the couch together. These girls are, like, so affectionate with each other. And again, just, like, so weird. They're so weird. They're so comfortable with each other. They're so affectionate right off the bat. It is lovely. And I will even admit, the William intro is good. The William intro is good. What's this guy? Oh, I gotta check what the... Noah. His name's Noah. I would have never got there on that one. It is such a good intro, though. He's, like, an artsy indie boy instead of, like, a frat boy, which is so perfect, and it's such a good change. And I love the way they did that, because those boys are just as evil. They are just as evil. They're just as despicable, and I'm glad this show addressed it. Instead of taking Engel to get, like, birth control, they take her to get her vag waxed. Iconic. Super funny. Love that. And also, Kez is a drug dealer. He's also not just, like, doing drugs, he is selling them, which is super criminal. Also, in the fight scene, Isa gets her shit rocked. And she fights the fuck back. All of them do. Even Engel is swinging. Their fight is crazy. Honestly, a lot of them are. The girl fights, like, go pretty hard, but, like, this one in particular, holy shit. Isa then tries to talk to Kez at school, like, about what happened, and his friends, like, call her, like, a crazy slut, like a fucking slut and stuff, which is not okay at all. I don't care how mad you are at your girlfriend, letting your friends talk to her like that. Oh my god, that made me so mad. That was a tough scene to add, but whew. But then Engel and Liv give Isa these, like, really cute little rose-colored glasses, and she, like, puts them on. It's, like, they're heart-shaped pink glasses. It's such a cute little quirky scene, because they add these cute little quirky... I love it. Isa, Liv, and Jan then stand on a rooftop and scream about the things that they're struggling with while Sufjan Stephen plays, and it is, like, the greatest, most cathartic scene ever, and is so relatable, and is like maybe or maybe not something that's actually happened to me. So like I really appreciated that one. In the bathroom, instead of Issa trying to apologize to anyone, she actually confronts Angle for being really like fake and mean, and she doesn't hear her vomiting or anything, which I think is a really, really valid addition, because while Ava has a lot to feel bad about, she already feels bad about it, and I think it was about time someone did call out Angle for her shit and for the way that she does not stand up for Ava when she needs to. So I respect that addition. She then's like trying to convince this like advisor at school to let her change schools, and she gets into a fight with him, and she uses the momentum from that fight to go confront Inez, who is the Ingrid. And this scene is so good. It is so sweet. They really, really establish the relationship and the history between the two of them very, very well. It's so cute. Issa then confronts the girlfriend, and there's no like upperclassmen convo. Like that whole plot line is just kind of like cut out. And Inez like didn't kiss anyone. That's cut. Lucas is the snitch. That remains. But like most of that is pretty much cut and shifted, which I think was kind of valid, because kind of like the girls, like the upperclassmen say, they're like, it's just not that big of a deal. It's just not that big of a deal. And in this show, they kind of just go with that of like, oh yeah, it isn't that big of a deal. Issa then gets her nose pierced at the end of episode 9, which is such a fun thing. It also looks like that actress really got her nose pierced, like, on the fucking on screen, which is crazy. But it was just really fun to see an Ava do something for herself and, like, make a choice for herself. Such a permanent choice after the whole season of her being told that she couldn't do anything for herself. Yes, the fuck she can. Jan, Liv, and Issa just get a fucking music video. A sick-ass music video. It's amazing. And there's this really great scene where Ava is going through her photos and deciding to delete photos between, like, her and Inez and her and Kez, but then decides to keep them and embrace them, which we've all been there. Their girl party is Beyonce themed, which is a lovely touch, and they actually take Angle to the fucking hospital when she blacks out and is passed out unconscious, and they sing to her on the ambulance, which is beautiful. But like, thank God they actually got her medical fucking help. The girls stay at Issa's house except for Amon, who goes to get a pregnancy test, and as she's going to take the test, she gets her period, so they laugh it off. And they really don't have a serious conversation about like that situation or like her eating disorder that's usually mentioned there, which I kind of have mixed feelings on, because on one hand, that's like sort of serious conversation. It's just not the vibe of this girl squad. It's not their style. They show affections and help each other in other ways. And I think this show does do a really good job at showing the way they show up for each other and support each other without having just like super long, serious conversations. But also sometimes you do need the long, serious conversation. And I think this was the time. There was some stuff we needed to address that we really did not address. And we should have. We should have. We also don't get a fuck you're beautiful scene, thank God. And we get another Noah walk with confetti, which is just such a cool visual. Issa and Lucas make up like for real after their talk, like for serious. They don't end on bad terms. And finally, while Noah is apologizing to Angle, he obviously, like very obviously, reaches his arm over her shoulder and hands Liv a note, a crumpled up note, but we don't see what's on that note. And that's how the season ends. Overall, pros of this show, it never takes itself too seriously. I think it really just appreciates like how weird being a teenager can be and how fun it can be and how colorful it can be alongside how shitty it can be. It's just like a good fucking time. The soundtrack was also so perfect and specific to the time. Like they robbed my high school playlist. It's bad. They also really just like embrace the aesthetic, again, along with like never taking themselves too seriously. Like they're just very comfortable in themselves. Like all the characters feel very comfortable in themselves and how they're presenting themselves and how the show is presenting itself. It just feels very natural and personal to the country and to specifically just this production and what they wanted to do with it, which I really like. There's also a very specific scene from this season in episode 1 where Issa's getting ready for the party and she's like putting her tights on and her toe pops out. So she like takes Scotch tape and she like wraps the tights. And I think of that like anytime I get like a run or a hole in my tights, I will literally like think of that scene and be like, I should just put Scotch tape on it. Like that is part of my being. That scene of all things. Cons, I will say, Engel's ED was reduced a lot. I think that is a really, really good plotline in the show. It's already unfortunate that Vilde did not get a full season, so I do not want to see any more of her plotlines cut, and it totally is in this one. Like I said, some things just don't get maybe as much of a serious conversation as they deserve, and while I could recognize, like, that might not be the style, that might not be the move for these girls in some moments, I think some things needed them, or at least just needed more time, or more needed to be addressed in some way, and it just really wasn't, which I do think was really unfortunate. Other than that, I would say this season perfectly encapsulates what remakes are all about and why they are so great. It takes a story that we know and love and just totally adds its own flair to it. Unapologetically, it is specific to the country, it's specific to the people that made it, it is unique, it's just a really fun time and a fun thing to watch while also still totally being SKAM. I really, really appreciate it. Like, this show is, like, by definition, like, what I think a remake should be and, like, what makes a remake great. Obviously, as you can tell, I really, really like this one. I speak very highly of it. It does have its flaws, but it's so good. It is so good. I really, really, really like this one. I'm really, really biased. I can't even hide my bias. And it might not even be my favorite. Just like, God, it's fun to talk about. The next remake we have is SKAM Espana, which is another Ava season and another one that came out in 2018. This season is easily one of the most different. I think this remake in general, is probably one of the most different. Most notably, not something that'll be as relevant in this season, but they switch it so that all 4 seasons are about a girl squad member, about all the girl squad members. So that they switch the Isaac storyline to Chris's character. Again, this doesn't come up much in this season, but I do think that shifting of the focus entirely to the girl group is something that you can really see, like, established here, so I thought it was important to draw some attention to. The rust replacement in this one is a end-of-year class trip. Viri is a class representative, Viri being this version's Vilde, and she needs the girls' help to plan it and get people to join them. So this remake does not start with the Jonas speech. It actually starts with Jorge, who is this show's Jonas, Ava, and Isaac all just, like, hanging out before the first day of school. And, like, the tension, like, you can feel Isaac's jealousy. It's palpable. Jorge has his boys group from, like, day 1. They are in this show. And we really, right off the bat, see Amira directly facing Islamophobia in her school, and we find out that she actually just started wearing her hijab. In other remakes, it's not directly mentioned when the Sana character started wearing it, or it's implied that it was maybe a few years before, but in this one, it's a very recent change. We then get this, like, fake out Nora named Lara, who's, like, okay. She, like, looks like her, and she dresses like her, and then, like, acts like her, and, like, you get some scenes between Ava and Laura that feel like Ava and Nora scenes, and then it's like, she's not actually the Nora. Like, it ends up being someone else. But that's fun. She comes back in the butt. Okay. Alejandro, who is this show's William, also gets his, like, walk in episode 1. I found that's something a lot of the remakes have started doing. Inez, who is this show's Ingrid, also gets a lot more screen time. She is way more of a prominent character in this show, which is really interesting. Ava and her don't fight at the party. They actually have, like, a really long, direct fight, like, outside of school. And they work to make Inez very sympathetic, like, rightfully so, and do make what Jorge and Ava did kind of, like, more of, like, a sin, like, a bigger deal, and more of a secret, which is valid. And the girl squad does not all meet before they start their planning session. In fact, that's when they come together for the first time, like, assemble at the planning session. We find out that this Nora is from Madison, Wisconsin. And yet again, this is another Ava that sees, like, physically sees Jorge with Inez at the end of the episode. Like, doesn't maybe hear her, like, witnesses it. Viri also really tries to intentionally exclude Amira in a way. Some of the other Vildes haven't, and they get over that really quick, and they maybe shouldn't have, but okay. And then the first time Ava meets this show's penetrator, Chris, is, like, when she's trying to call to Chris in the cafeteria, and he just, like, walks over, and they meet. That's their meeting. And then this is when the girls also find out about Alejandro and the like Instagram liking happens. Like that all kind of goes down in that one moment. They then have their girl squad walk. It is iconic. That was their trailer, which I think was like super clever. I think that was such a good trailer because like if you know, you know, but also if you don't know, like I would be hooked. I'd be like, who are these girls? I gotta know. Such a good trailer, such a good girl walk. Congrats. Ava then gets into a fight with Inez instead of Amira. Like, instead of her getting the drink thrown on her by Amira, she fights with Ava, and they're, like, gonna leave, but then they don't. And then her and Jorge fight about the text at her house, and he insults her by comparing her to Inez, which is sick. Viri gets over Alejandro for a bit after the first makeout. Like, she tries to move on in a way that some of the other Vildes haven't. But then she goes on a real date with him while Ava and Jorge go to the cabin. And the rest of the girl group goes to another cabin. So Chris, Amira, Nora at a cabin. Jorge, Ava, Isaac, those boys at another cabin. Alejandro, Viri on a date. Glad we established that. And they're at the cabin. When Ava's at the cabin, she's not interrupted by drugs. It's just like just the boy group. And then her and Jorge break up. Like when she leaves the cabin and they break up. And then they did this fun little thing at the end of this episode for the first time, something they'll do again throughout the series, which was called SKAM Plus. So we get a scene from the girls on their little girl trip at their cabin, even though it's not directly related to the Ava season. We find out that Chris actually knew Amira since before she started wearing the hijab, and alluded that like she even has like seen her flirt and stuff. Which leads Amira to explain why she decided to start wearing the hijab and some of the changes she's made to her life since, which is really great. It's a really, really great and sweet scene, and I think it's a really fun thing to do with the show's format, with the real-time format, and the way you can kind of play with the release to do a scene like this that like is so separated from the main plot but still so relevant to the story. It was really fun. When we get back to the main plot, Nora comforts Ava in the school bathroom over her breakup. It is the sweetest. Ava and Inez keep having kind of like one-on-one interactions and fights and tiffs, and Amira is really taking notice of that and like trying to really protect Ava and figure out what's going on. And then we get one of the craziest plot lines, and maybe all of SKAM. Remember that trophy plot line I hate? Remember how William like uses the girls as trophies and like brands them after he has sex with them so you can like keep track of it and like people can see it? So in this show, their version of that, instead of like hoodies or like anything normal, it's herpes. Alejandro gives a bunch of girls, including Viri, herpes. And so everyone can realize if you slept with Alejandro because you have herpes. Oh my god! I mean, very realistic, very important story, but tough. Really tough. We then, moving on, get another SKAM Plus with the boy squad and then pre-gaming, which quite frankly is not as relevant to this show because, again, we do not get a boy squad season, really. But I think this kind of helps make up for that because there obviously like is a lot of great chemistry and storylines between them. And I really like the way that they put that in SKAM Plus because then it doesn't necessarily cut away from the girl squad or their time. It balances that really well. Nora calls Alejandro a Pomeranian as her like diss instead of like a bad name. My god. And then we find out that male Chris's girlfriend, whom Ava has now betrayed, is Laura, fake Nora. So see, she did come back around. I told you. I doubted them, but she did come back around somehow. And then the like equivalent scene of the one where Ava finds out that Jonas is like doing drugs or selling drugs, whatever, is Ava finding out that Jorge was giving her a fake ID because she's like, I think just turned 17 and she's like dreaming of turning 18. So he like gets her the fake ID. So she's like, fuck, that was really sweet. And I cheated on you. Lucas, who is technically this show's Isaac, but not technically, comes out as gay right in episode 8, which is really shocking and is really great until Ava really selfishly like hijacks the convo, which creates tension between her and Isaac. The girls then have to go to the doctors because Viri has vaginal herpes. Right. Again, no shame in it. Like, it happens. Shit happens. get tested, stay safe, stay clean, you know, stay protected, get treated if needed, but damn. Bummer. They also have totally scaled back her ED. If you hadn't assumed by this crazy herpes plotline taking place, they've kind of moved away from the ED, which is super unfortunate. Ava immediately realizes that Lucas is the one that snitched on her about the cheating, as she should. I don't know why that was so hard for her to recognize in some other remakes. And then Ava accuses Isaac of doing it because he has a crush on Jorge, and that is not the case. So Jorge is very offended, rightfully so. And that's tense, that's tea. Ava admits to her past with Inez after a whole ass Instagram post, or no, Instagram account about her is made, like a hate account. It's terrible. And like everyone is mad at Ava, but for like different reasons. Amir is upset because she didn't tell her about her past with Inez. Only Nora stands by her. It's like a mess. Luckily, Laura comes to her senses about Chris being a shit very quickly and makes good with Ava very quickly after their fight. And then, like, usually in the scene, we'll get some sort of rendition of a, like, sorry I slapped you, and, like, an I deserved it, or, like, no, you're good, sort of thing. So in this one, we get a sorry I slapped you, I deserved it, no one does, except maybe him. That one's good. That's one of the best right there. And then to add to Ava's fucking terrible cyberbullying plotline, they, like, post a photo of her kissing Chris on the account, which is crazy and awful. Lucas opens up about his rough home life and how that has been impacting his relationship with Ava and Jorge, and Ava tries to fix things but yet again fails. And then instead of Ava just like kind of talking at Inez and like doing a big speech to try to get her to forgive her, they have like an actual back and forth conversation, which feels very productive and makes a lot more sense with the relationship they have up until this point. And I also think it's really valuable to hear Inez's perspective on this, because that's like actually really cut out, even though she's kind of like the ultimate victim in this, even though she did kind of go on to be an absolute villain. Like she's not given enough credit, she's not given enough sympathy. So I liked the way the show handled it. Like they do call her out for her shit, but they give her some credit. And we find out that while Inez is the one that posted the photo of Ava kissing Chris on Instagram, she isn't the one that took it. Viri was. And girl Chris literally like immediately goes to confront, literally backpack off immediately, swinging. Viri makes things right by posting another photo of Chris kissing another girl, and he like threatens her, but she stands her ground. She stands by her girl instead of submitting to that man. Ava makes a really conscious effort to establish a relationship with Lucas outside of Jorge, which I really would have loved to see how that would have worked had he gotten a season, but again, really love the fact that they established it this way to kind of make up for the fact that he didn't. I think it would have been very similar to what we see from Manon and Lucas in Lucas's season of SKAM France, which would have been great. So kind of a shame, but I do love the Chris season of SKAM Espana. Okay, my camera died, and I'm absolutely gonna blame that on how much time was just spent talking about herpes. Jorge and Ava have a chat about everything, you know, the good old breakup convo, and just a quick kiss before separating. It is also at this point that I realized the entire like dinner with mom plotline got cut. It was fine. I guess it didn't matter that much because I didn't realize until this point. And the season ends with Ava and the girls going out on a little shopping trip in honor of Ava's birthday, which is so sweet. So I would say the pros of this show are that it seeks to establish itself as a really like girl squad show. This like significantly changes the roles of the men in the show and even sometimes reduces them, but for the sake of women, which is like low-key kind of radical. I respect that this remake realized the conversations they wanted to have, especially surrounding the culture around them and what they were willing to do to make those conversations happen. And they do a really, really good job at tying what is happening in the girls' personal lives back to broader conversations about womanhood and feminism at the time. I think this does a really good job to help distinguish this remake from the other ones while still remaining really true to the show and what it was trying to do and like what the show is about, which is about the girl squad and the friends and everything. And again, the boy squad still is completely inserted into the show, and the more direct Isaac replacement still does get a great storyline, which is jumping forward quite a bit, but it's just different and it's more woman forward, and I'm sorry, I respect that shit. A con would be that we get another non-plus size Chris and also a reduced conversation about Viri's ED, which does kind of undercut some of the messages they're trying to spread about like body positivity. It's kind of like they needed to do a better job at practicing what they preach, and overall some of their social moments do fall a little flat. But the show commits to something really unique. It commits to the form very well. It commits to being a remake really well. It stresses a lot of really important themes. And while it had room for improvement, I definitely think this was a really, really great start. And I respect a lot of what they did with this. Next up, we have another not directly copied, remade, named remake. You know what I mean? It's wtFOCK. What the fuck? I don't even know how to pronounce it. I've always, in my head, it's like always wtFOCK. But anyways, it's Yana's season, the Belgian remake of SKAM. This one dropped out of nowhere. Literally, there's actually usually very short warning from like a SKAM season like going into production to like you finding out about it to like it happening. Like usually it's very quick, it's very secretive just because like it's not a well-publicized process. This one dropped the fuck out of nowhere. Literally, I woke up one morning and it existed. So, okay. The Rust replacement in this show is something they're calling Free Fest, which for them is a school-funded but student-produced music festival. There are 12 episodes of the season, which is actually more than the original, Boss Up. And instead of Jens, who is the Jonas doing the opening speech, the Isaac, aka Robbie, does it, and it's just like a video. They say it's an Instagram story, but it was super fucking long, so I don't know what they meant by that. But it's just like it's just like a video he's like making and like talking. Okay. They're just like drinking in public and broad daylight and like very directly addressing the elephant of the room, which is like the cheating scandal. Like they kind of know. They're very much addressing the like, so we got together through cheating. Instead of being invited to the party by weird theater kids, she is invited by a girl who she stops trying to be friends with after the girl offers her laughing gas, which was crazy. And then they add this scene between Yana, her mom, and Britt, who is the show's Ingrid, where they like see her awkwardly in the mall and like clearly the mom doesn't know that they're not friends anymore or like why they're not friends anymore. And we see just a really good representation of who Yana is as a person, who's just like a really sweet girl, but just like very shy, very insecure. This actress does a really good job at creating a really unique characterization of Ava. Jens also encourages Yana to make friends before he like gets mad at her, which makes it feel like a little more genuine and also seems to come from like a place of guilt, because he kind of recognizes that the reason she doesn't have friends anymore is also his fault. This doesn't last. He starts to suck, but he doesn't suck right here. We then meet Zoe, who's our Nora, who just moved from Norway. Iconic. And we meet Yasmina, who's our Sana, and similar to Iman from SKAM France, is also not allowed to wear her hijab in school. This show also does a really good job of alluding to the girls' like traumas more, like issues more. Like it's very clear that Amber is struggling with some money issues and that Zoe might have some trauma in her past. They're setting up future plot lines and also just like making the characters a lot more human. The girls get their girls walk on Halloween without Yasmina, which kind of sucks. It's very cool, but like it's just not the girls walk, which is kind of sad. And we see Sene, who's the William, talk to Amber at the party like a normal human being. And he's like actually nice to Ava's mom when they run into each other. So like, okay, William being a human, all right. Luca also is the one that starts the fight that makes the girls leave the party, and I could be completely wrong. I might have just missed it. I don't think this is ever explained. I don't think it's explained why she got in this fight, and if it is, it's not a big deal. Like it was in the original where it kind of like lingered. So maybe I missed that, but I feel like they never explain what happened there. It must have had something to do with Amber, just like in the original, I imagine. Yeah, it was just her taking the place of where Yasmina would have been had she been there, but I don't remember them ever saying that. But I have to imagine they did. There's also this really uncomfortable scene where Yana and Zoe have to go back to the house where the party was the next day to get Ava's phone from Luca, and he's like a total fucking creep about it. Super uncomfy, super weird. We also find out that Yana's dad is actually passed away, Her and her mom have a really sweet scene where they address this, and they have like a really, really beautiful moment together, but it's like super heartbreaking. And then later, after Yana and her mom get to a fight, they have a really sweet scene where they actually like make up, because her mom recognizes like, holy shit, my daughter needs help, which a lot of Ava's other parents do not do. Bon Iver is playing. I did cry. I will always cry at that scene. It's very beautiful. They also do a really good job at paralleling Amber and Yana and the things Amber is trying to do in her relationships with men and the things that Yana is trying to do in her relationships with men. I think they connect the two of them in a way that a lot of the other remakes have neglected to, which I appreciated. And we get a really devastating scene where Yana tries to send Yen some pics in regards to a conversation had about Amber and Sene, and she's just like not able to do it in the end. Very beautiful, very subtle. Not very subtle, I guess, but very beautiful. And I have another note, which again, like SKAM NL, these girls are fucking weird. These are weird girls, and I appreciate it. We get a scene where Yana confronts Luca, which was so needed. And Zoe also gets like a creepy stalker note along with the one Yana gets. So like the plot has thickened. Robbie does not actually tell Yana that he has a crush on her. It's Zoe that suggests it. And this unfortunately prevents Robbie from coming out when it seems like he might have actually been willing to. Zoe gets another confrontation scene with Sene, as she should. It's so good. And Yasmina and Ava flip Luca off, as they should. Senna ends up apologizing to Amber in front of Zoe, which like kind of defeats the point of him doing it and pretending like it was authentic. But this William is already off to a much stronger start than any of the other ones. So I'm gonna take what I can get. Also, Yana's speech right at the end fits really hard. It's really specific. It's really impactful. I've had critiques of other remakes in the past where I'm like, they don't go far enough. This scene goes just far enough. It's perfect. It addresses everything it needs to address. She says everything she should have said. I love it. It's so satisfying. Overall, some pros of this show. The girls are very complex. They are really sweet and strange and just lovely, lovely girls. Very, very talented group of actresses there. And I just really, really like this girl squad. They're very unique while still being very much the girls. It's also very different from the original. It hits all the main points, but like it really does have a really refreshing and different vibe. Even the just manner of which it was released was very different, which is really cool and really exciting. Cons, like Austin, I say that it does pretty much everything right, but still just kind of falls flat. Unlike that Yana speech I was talking about that very satisfyingly hit everything it needed to hit, I will say other points in the show do not do that. It opens up a lot of really good conversations, but doesn't always finish them. But regardless, I appreciate what they were trying to do, and I think they did a lot of good. So I very much enjoyed this one. I can't believe we have done it, but we are finally here. We are to the most recent remake of SKAM, SRAM, the Croatian remake, which is another Ava season. This remake is very recent. It aired end of last year, beginning of this year, and their Nora season is currently airing right now. Their season 2. Their characters have TikToks. It's a fully 2020s remake. That's crazy. It's crazy. It's also crazy because it's the first remake that's come out that hasn't at least started while I was actually in high school. Even though a few of the remakes maybe finished airing while I was already in college, this show entirely started while I was in college. So I'm gonna admit, I'm a little disconnected. I did feel a little old at times watching this one, but I also still relate to it because quite frankly, most teen dramas could and should be set in college anyways. So, also fun fact, this is the first remake to remake the season 1 trailer, which was really fun. Some of them have done it for season 3, and I think they did it again for season 2, but yeah, this is the first one to remake the season 1 trailer. The Rust replacement is Coop, which is honestly, as I've come to understand from the show, very similar to Russ, but seemingly on a train. Correct me if I'm wrong, I totally could be, but it's kind of a similar-ish situation. On to the differences. Number 1, the quality is insane, and just the like way it's filmed in general is very different and just like very of the times, in the same way that I mentioned earlier, the original SKAM is like kind of dated in the sense of like it is so 20 teens. This show is so 2020s. As someone that just graduated film school, all of these techniques are like so of the time. Like it's such a time capsule of fashion and language and everything, and I really, really like that. And I think in a few years we're going to look back on this version of SKAM the way, like, nostalgically, the way we're now looking back on the first remake of SKAM, or the first version of SKAM. The opening speech is actually an essay that Yakov, their Jonas, has written for Ava, because she is struggling in class, so he is helping her cheat. Ava gets a super cute music video where she's getting ready for the party, and it kind of has little fantasy sequences the way that SKAM NL had, which I love. That was one of my favorite parts about SKAM NL, so I'm really excited to see another remake adding moments like that. Also, Ava tries to defend Sarah, who is the show's Ingrid, from Nora, at the bar when Nora, like, overhears Sarah being a bitch and is like, that she shouldn't have treated you like that. Ava tries to defend her, which is, like, super sweet, but then Nora doubles down, as she should, because Sarah was being really mean. And the bathroom scene, oh my god, it's so good. This one, it's so chaotic, it is so funny, it's just so camp. Again, similar to NL, this is a remake that just completely embraces what it is and how crazy it is, and I love it. And then we get these crazy shots when they're at the cabin. There's some beautiful visuals, and Ava plays with a praying mantis, and it's the sweetest scene ever. Oh my god. Beautiful stuff happening in this remake. And there's no failed messages between Ava and Nora. They just join each other in class, and they're ready to go. We then get one of the most interesting changes of this remake, which is the fact that Vanessa, their Sana, is not Muslim, rather she is Romani. This was done to address and relate to the Romani population in their community, and specifically the persecution that they've frequently faced, which I quite frankly think was completely valid to do. I think that's a relevant change for the culture. I think we've gotten so many remakes of SKAM that have shown Sana as a Muslim woman, which is so important. But in this show, to have a Romani actress playing a Romani character, addressing some of the intricacies of their local community and their minority groups, I think that was really, really important. And when Vanessa is introducing herself to the greater girl group, she mentioned that she already knows Tina, who is this group's Vilde, because we are from the same neighborhood, to which Tina responds, not quite the same, which is fascinating dynamic there. It's also interesting because she does not have the same cultural limitations or cultural religious limitations or restrictions or just choices that Sana might have or need to make, just because, again, she is not Muslim, she's Romani. And so she instead kind of talks about the way that she is limited by the biases placed on her, rather than her, willingly making sacrifices for her culture. She's kind of being pushed out because of her culture and her identity, and she's intentionally excluded from situations rather than deciding to exclude herself, which was a really interesting dynamic and is going to, I think, make for some really interesting plot lines there, because it allows her to be present in a way that Sana has not been in some of the other remakes, and able to do things and relate to the girls in ways that other Sanas are not able to. Rocco, who is the William, does not get any special walk-in scene, luckily. Just a shot at lunch, that's good enough. All the girls are there, they all see it, covered. It's enough of that. And then the scene where Ava tells all the girls that she's gotten invited to the party happens over FaceTime, which is a really fun visual thing. We've seen other SKAMs do like FaceTime scenes, but often they happen like during the pandemic or were kind of like offshoots, like they weren't really like in the, so it was interesting to see it so boldly inserted into the plot, and I think worked really well. Ava and her mom get into like a massive fight about her going to the party before she goes, but she's allowed to go anyways, and they have this like iconic drunken stumble up the side of a mountain. So funny, so realistic, so relatable. I love it. And then when Ava goes to Yakov's house to like talk to him after the party, he's like clearly high. She doesn't notice. He's like so obviously high. And then Ava finally tells her mom about the fact that she has a boyfriend, and it is like the cutest scene ever. It is just like so girlhood. It is so sweet and fun. I love when Ava has scenes like that with her mom. And then the girls minus Tina get this really fun added scene in just like a park where they smoke and fuck around and like jump over abandoned shit and like graffiti something, I think. It's just like such a fun, quirky little rebellious scene that I loved so much. There's also a plot line where Tina sends Rocco some nude photos that he then screenshots without her consent. And at the end of the episode, they put a hotline because that's fucking illegal. That is illegal. That is illegal for him to do. He should not have done that. That is not an okay thing for him to do. And the show points that out and they put a hotline and tell people that if that has happened to you, that's not okay because he's a villain. They call Rocco a poor man's Andrew Tate. Music to my ears. He tries to fight back when Nora confronts him, which, like, ew. Silence. Silence. And then at the end, when she's, like, storming away, he's like, call me. Oh, fuck him. And then, like, he and Nyx, like, try to, like, laugh it off a bunch, but the girls around them take notice. They're filming because, like, everyone's filming everything in this show. I don't know if that's, like, accurate to the current teenage population or, like, a weird assumption they're making, but everyone is always filming everything. So the girls' fight is fucking insane. It's a smackdown. And Inez exposes Yakov and Ava through, like, Instagram video of, like, all of the evidence of them and what they did to her, which is kind of tea. Ava doesn't get a period blood note. Instead, someone writes in lipstick on, like, on the front window of the school, which is crazy because it's, like, this massive thing that she, like, can't scrub off. Really beautifully shot scene as well, of course. Also, throughout this season, they did a pretty good job of establishing Ava and Tina to have a special connection in which Ava is, like, pretty much always running after Tina when she gets upset and tries to leave. Like, Ava's consistently trying to include her and be there for her, which really adds, like, an extra level to their confrontation in the bathroom. And then when Ava goes to talk to the older girls in the show, they're so chill and cool. Like, especially so fucking chill and cool. That's one of my favorite scenes in SKAM ever, is when Ava goes to talk to the older girls and apologize to them, and they're like, girl, what are you apologizing for? It ain't that serious. That is one of the best scenes ever on television, and this one does it so well. Sarah and Ava have a really, really deep and healing talk in which Sarah says that at least Ava has really good taste in boys. Again, just a very, very good scene. I love seeing the way that SKAM remakes have gotten better and better over time of that relationship specifically and that final scene between the two of them. Nyx and Ava are also established to have a really, really close and special friendship. Clearly, like, Ava's love language is touch. They're very affectionate with each other. They just have, like, a really sweet moment that I just wanted to highlight. I just love when all of the girls all have a very, very clear, tangible love for each other. That's what we need to see. Also, boy Nyx and Yakov get into, like, an actual fight because Nyx taunts the fuck out of him. Very violent. This show's edgy. Edgy, violent, aggressive little kids. Also, when all of the girls are, like, making amends, Nyx's ex-girlfriend specifically apologizes to Vanessa and has, like, a really cute, like, scene acknowledging Vanessa's talent for makeup, which is something established earlier in the show. So that was just, like, really cute. Again, just a moment of, like, all the girls supporting all the girls. I really, really appreciate. They then have a Christmas party. So SKAM season 3. Rocco's apology is terrible and the girls don't give a fuck anyways. And the show ends, the last line, cut to black with the title, "Maybe he's ashamed." Oh! I love when a SKAM season has a good, strong T ending. And that was one. Maybe he's ashamed. Cut to title card. Shame. Oh my god. They're good. So overall, pros of this show, I would say visually, it is a mix between Italia and NL, which makes it super, super high quality, super just, like, beautiful to watch and look at. Like, the people making this show cared. And you can tell. Ava is also established as her own person really well. Obviously, like, that is a plotline of the season, is her working to do that, but they actually show her doing that and give her her time to do that, which is really, really beautiful. And we get a lot of really, really sweet scenes. This really is an Ava season. It's not as ensemble as some other Ava seasons can turn out to be. She really, really shines and stands out, and I really, really love that. It also modernizes itself really well. Again, this is one of the first remakes to start fully in the 2020s. It's been almost 10 years since the first SKAM. It's been 10 years since SKAM. Oh my god, that's crazy. So times have changed, and I think they do a really good job of showing that, as well as embracing the space they are in. It feels very specific to their country and their location. I feel like even I can tell that while still being able to totally understand and enjoy the show, regardless of my, like, distance from that. Cons, I will again say that Vanessa's identity was not explored enough. I think that was again, a valuable change to make, but if you're going to do that, I think it needs the time and energy, and they didn't fully give it the time and energy, which is very sad. I'm hoping that this is something we'll see explored obviously in more seasons, especially as we get into seasons 3 and 4. Yeah, it's just sad. I think there's something interesting there, and we're just not quite seeing it yet. Overall, this one carried NL's torch. It's making me very happy and is keeping me in the SKAM fam, even as a grown-ass adult woman. Well, everyone, there we go. That is it. That is every remake of SKAM Season 1, the differences, the pros, the cons, all my opinions, all of the good things. Honestly, there is yet to be a SKAM remake that I have straight up disliked, especially of the first season. All of them are pretty, like, similar enough to the original that if you like that first original season of SKAM, you're going to love pretty much every single one as well, I think. I think Ava doesn't get enough appreciation. I think her season really, really is great and talks about a lot of plot lines that are really, really familiar to a lot of people. And I think they're a lot more subtle. Obviously, all of the seasons of SKAM do that, but I think this one is very, very subtle and very familiar and very personal, and I really, really appreciate that. I still haven't gotten bored of it, even after all this time. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know what remakes you have watched, haven't watched, which Ava season's your favorite, least favorite. I will hopefully be making a video like this for the rest of the seasons. If you guys enjoy, I've already kind of started working on the season 2 one, so I'll definitely do that one, especially because that is the only other season all of the current remakes got through. After season 2, we got our first 2 SKAM cancellations. So I definitely would at least like to go over that if y'all will let me. Y'all will let me. You will let me, please. I hope you enjoyed whatever this is. Again, I think I want this to be a series. I think it's going to develop over time. I think I'm going to do something like this for maybe every single season, and then maybe do some sort of final rating or ranking. That was something I really struggled with, was if I wanted to do like a rating system. I thought of like a tier list, a star list, something like that. I think I might want to do that once I've gone through every single season of every single remake, because I kind of want to see that placed out before my own eyes myself. Like, I want to really, I think, do a full retrospective, again, watching this as an adult. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe for more. I'm new to this, so that feels really weird and ironic to say. I kind of feel like I'm making fun of myself. I would say my most active social media, and the one that you'll be seeing stuff about this, is my TikTok, which is Spectre Calor. So follow me there for more SKAM content. I've posted some SKAM content there before, and I will be in the future, especially about this video. So follow me there if you'd like. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye. Oh, wow. Goodbye.